Hello. So I want to talk about a battle that I played today. Um, it's a very annoying Skaven army I've come up with. Um, it's a variation on a lizardman army that I was showed by a viewer named Atei, where he took 9 skink chameleons and 3 skink cohorts, or skink skirmishers, and basically the front line of skirmishing infantry and Krokgar and a Revivification Crystal as some heavy hitting units and Pterodon Riders in the sky. Anyways, enough about that build. I'm showing you a Skaven build I came up with that relies on 2 Warp Lightning Cannons separated in the back with Tretch Craven Tail and 2 Skaven Slaves on one group and 2 Skaven Slaves and a Storm Vermin with Halberd on the other. And then we have 6 Gutter Runner Slingers with Poison, and 3 Gutter Runner Slingers. We are going to be using those to kind of slow down the advance of the Lizardman army here. And as the Lizardman army advances, we're going to be shooting at the large targets of the Feral Carnosaur and the Feral, or the Revivification Crystal. I believe I take a couple shots early on against some bad targets, but I get my cannons onto the right targets pretty quickly. But the idea here is just to slow down the advance, and when they do manage to reach our cannons, we're going to use our mobility, and we're going to drop our cannons where they are, and we're going to run away, and we're going to use the infantry to slow them down and force them to chase us, so we can try and have at least one of these cannons online at any given time. But yeah, anyways, into the battle. So here the Lizardman player is marching forward. They keep their lines pretty tight. They try and keep their shields in front, their skinks in front. It's a good call. I don't think they can see these vanguarded units out here. These do in fact have stock up. I can see that now. So they can't see my some of my periphery slingers. I'm gonna try and get in behind to hit the backs of these Saurus warriors or Saurus spears with shields and the temple guards, as well as just focus on the Revivification Crystal as fast as possible. If we can get him to have 0 healing out of this, that's all the better. But yeah, he's coming up pretty hot and fast, seriously making a quick approach towards my cannons. I did deploy pretty far back, but not back against the wall. I wanted to have some room to fall back into. And like I said, I also am going to be trying to pull my artillery crews away, so I want to use these Skaven Slave Spears to kind of break their charge and give time for my crews to get some distance. And I want my Skaven Slaves to come back. So if I put this right up against the edge, it'd probably just rat off the map, and I wouldn't see them ever again. But I'm going to get to use them multiple times throughout this battle to pull way above their weight class, so to speak. So at this point, I drop this artillery crew after we've kind of routed off the Revivification Crystal. I think I keep a couple units of Gutter Runners on it to just run it off. I might switch them to melee mode. That's something you can do, since no reason to waste ammo on something that's routing. All you have to do is chase it. But I use the Skaven Slaves here to break up the charge of these skinks. Good call using the skinks against the more lightly defended group here. They would kill the Skaven Slaves if it was a straight fight. But Tretch and the Warp Lightning Cannon are going to keep running. I think this is a mistake here, not using your skinks to take this location here, killing the Skaven Slave Spears, and then holding this so I can't put my artillery crew back on it. My artillery crew, if they can't get access to this location, are just 20 really bad rats. If they can get to this location, however, either of these locations, they can start firing again. So they've pushed off both of my cannons at this point. Some Gutter Runners get caught out, but I pull the Skaven Slave Spears in and try and disengage the Gutter Runners any moment now, I'm sure. Guess not, they're going to keep fighting. But yeah, as you can see, we've just kind of now gotten behind his army. We're surrounding him. The Gutter Runners are in the back. He's pulling some skinks back to try and cut these guys off, but I'm just going to focus down his Heaven's Caster and try and split these skinks, or these skirmishers up, so that the skinks can't be on them all at the same time. Over here, Tretch is running. The Warp Lightning crew has made it a little farther. This Feral Carnosaur, though, is very fast, and the skinks, I don't know for sure, but I think the skinks are faster than... I can't pull up unit cards in a replay, apparently. But I think the skinks are faster than my Skaven Slaves. I think at a certain point here, I decided to turn my Skaven Slaves back around and engage. I think they start running up over here, though. So we're just kind of going to run these guys around in a circle around the map, around this kind of lower basin. Because ideally we do want to get this cannon back online, so I'm thinking if I can run it all the way around this basin and back onto this cannon even, that would be useful. As you can see, he's kind of backed off this artillery point, which I think is a mistake. You need to sit on these points if you're this kind of player. I don't have enough ammo with the slingers to kill both your monsters and your infantry, but if you let me get cannon shots off on your monsters, then I can definitely do both. So he has, I can't fight him in melee. He might as well just sit here on both of these cannons and force me to use some of my slingers in melee. I only have one unit of storm vermin, so my melee options are very limited. As we see here, the skinks have caught up to our Skaven slaves. Who knows if that was mismicro on my part, or if they were simply faster. But they kind of just pull through. They're not interested in the slaves, and you know, if you take the slaves out, I have less units to block with. I mean, you just rout them off the map. You're dedicating a lot of units to really just killing one unit of Skaven slaves and a Warp Lightning Cannon, when really one of these Saurus warriors can be pulled off to push that unit off the field. But yeah, so Tretch and the Skaven slaves get caught here. I'm a little worried about these gutter runners here, so I think I take some of them off skirmish mode and start manually pathing them up this hill. But Tretch feels caught, and I don't really feel like I can escape as him anymore. So I've popped the unstockable, or the stock ability on these Warp Lightning Cannon, thinking it'll make them invisible, but in fact it does not. It just gives them bonus leadership, which is faded already. But anyways, they all collapsed on Tretch, and unfortunately, he is going to perish in this mosh pit. One little rat. He doesn't even have the lucky skull helm on, so he's losing this fight hard, but he doesn't even get some ward save. But I'm just going to start pouring in my poisoned rocks and not poisoned rocks, and just throwing lots of little stones into here while the Warp Lightning Cannon is going to start firing again. I think it's on one of the Bastiladons, but I think I switch it back to the Carnosaur, because that Carnosaur is fast, and that is a problem here. I don't have much to stop the Carnosaur once it gets into combat. I mean, I have one unit of Storm Vermin, but Tretch is now dead, and the Bastiladons are much slower. I feel like I can drag them down with the slings a lot easier. Although the Bastiladons probably have more armor, so it's probably more efficient to be using the slings on the Carnosaur, but certainly isn't as easy. That being said, the Bastiladon does catch some gutter runners. They probably have skirmish mode turned off because I was trying to manually path them away from something. It's probably a few seconds before I realized that mistake and start pathing them away again manually. This cannon is going to get back online. It's going to be able to make it all the way back over here. I mean, if these Saurus warriors manage to rally, I suppose they could attack it. I don't remember if they do. But yeah, I mean, I've just been walking around his army the whole time. I mean, we haven't really engaged in any serious melee. I'm going to pull these Skaven slaves in to slow his advance once again, and maybe get some backs turned so that I can start using my slingers to fire into their rears, because these shields do block a lot of the damage from the slings, and I want to get the most value out of my ammo. Considering I don't really have any true melee potential here, I need to kill almost everything with these slings. Yeah, I gotta feel bad for my opponent here. I mean, this isn't a very fun match to play for them, I'm sure. It was just something I was interested in trying. There's no 360-degree fire on the gutter runners like the chameleon skinks, and I was wondering if the artillery play would allow a build like this to work. And it kind of does. It's certainly an interesting kind of thing. I mean, it'd be countered pretty hard by lots of dog spam, or I mean, maybe some. I don't know what you do to play against this. What do you guys think? How do you play against a build like this? I mean, you gotta be more mobile. I mean, feral cold ones probably would have hold some weight here, but who knows? I mean, I think a big part of what they could have done is sat up on these cannons. I think that would have helped a ton, but it's hard to tell, you know. I'm starting to run low on ammo on some of my units here, and they still have a sizable force. I mean, the balance of power is in my favor, but I don't have any leadership left. They still have magic in the form of the Skink Priest of Heavens. I haven't seen them using it very much, but you know, if we get into a blob dove fight, the Wind Blast are going to be very strong against essentially gutter runners in melee, because I mean, that's what's going to have to come down to, right? But this Warp Lightning Cannon gets back online. I mean, I've pulled the crew for this one away with the storm vermin when they started to make their way back. So they're not able to get their hands on those warp lightning cannons. And this Bastiladon is going to go down. I mean, he's just going to get dragged down by the slings and the warp lightning cannon. But anyways, at this point, the battle is pretty much just cleanup. I'll fast forward a little bit. The Carnosaur comes back for a second, but just gets routed off as soon as he sees the slings again. I'm using some of my gutter runners on melee mode to just chase down that feral Bastiladon to save their ammo. But yeah, what should you do to play against this? It's a pretty cheesy build, but a couple factions can play builds like this with their skirmish infantry, and it's an interesting question how to counter something like this with a generalized build, not knowing your opponent is going to take something like this. Because if you know your opponent is going to play this style, then I suppose you just grab a bunch of dogs or fast cavalry. I know that the gutter runners are going to have poison, and they're going to have that snare net, and they're going to slow down a cav on the incoming. The chameleon skinks have those poison melee attacks, and they do pretty well in melee, but they're still not melee combatants, you know. Eventually you would be able to tear them apart. Or do you just go super heavy and chaff and just make your opponent waste a lot of ammo? I mean, what if my opponent had pushed his skinks out farther in front of his main line, so I wasn't able to shoot his, you know, his Carnosaur and Bastiladon with the slingers? I mean, who knows? What kind of options do you have here, guys? Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll shoot another battle sometime soon. Bye.